I stood in the center of my million-dollar villa surrounded by floor-to-ceiling windows that framed the endless Pacific Ocean and watched my phone screen light up with a message that would change everything. The house was perfect. Every detail from the reclaimed oak floors to the custom steel beams that created an open-airy sanctuary had been carefully designed by my own hands. Tonight was supposed to be my night. The housewarming party I had been planning for months. The celebration of everything I had built quite literally from the ground up. The message was from my mother. No greeting, no pleasantries. Just 10 words that cut through me like a blade. "We won't be coming. Serena needs us. She's moving today." Not sorry. Not even an excuse that pretended to care. Just a flat rejection delivered with the casual indifference I had known my entire life. I stared at the screen, and something inside me that had been bending for 32 years finally snapped, not with anger, not with tears, but with a cold, crystalline clarity. I looked around at the catering setup, the champagne chilling in ice buckets, the place cards I had handwritten for my family at the head table. And I laughed, a short, bitter sound that echoed in the empty space. Before we go any further, if this story resonates with you, if you have ever felt invisible in your own family, please hit that like button. Subscribe to hear more stories about reclaiming your worth. And comment below with your own experiences. Trust me, you are not alone. Now let me take you back to the beginning, because this story did not start with an award ceremony. It started 32 years ago on a Christmas morning that would define the rest of my childhood. I was 7 years old the first time I understood that love in my family came with conditions I could never meet. The living room looked like a toy store had exploded. Wrapping paper covered every surface in shades of pink and silver. Serena, my 4-year-old sister with her perfect blonde ringlets and dimpled smile, sat enthroned in the center of it all, squealing at a pitch that should have shattered glass. Her pile of presents towered over her. A 3-story dollhouse with real working lights. A battery-powered convertible in bubblegum pink that she could actually drive around the driveway. Dresses with layers of tulle and sequins that sparkled under the Christmas lights. Toys I had circled in catalogs, hoping, always hoping. My father circled her like a satellite, his new video camera glued to his face, capturing every gasp, every giggle, every moment of her joy. "Smile for Daddy, Princess," he cooed. "Show me how happy you are." My pile sat in the corner, 4 boxes, neat, practical, wrapped in plain brown paper because, as my mother had explained to the relatives, Eleanor prefers simplicity. I did not prefer simplicity. I was 7. I wanted the dollhouse too. I opened the first box. Encyclopedia Britannica, Volume A through D. I was 7 years old and barely reading chapter books. Second box, a set of mechanical pencils and graph paper notebooks. For the little engineer, the tag read in my mother's handwriting. Third box, a scientific calculator with functions I would not understand for years. The kind of gift that said, "We know you are smart and that will have to be enough." Fourth box, a desk lamp, because apparently I was going to spend a lot of time studying. I looked up at my father holding the calculator, waiting for him to turn the camera toward me, waiting for him to ask what I got, waiting for him to care. He never looked away from Serena. My mother, Victoria, noticed me sitting there in my corner of practical disappointments. She patted my head as she walked past, her voice bright and deliberate for the relatives watching. "Eleanor is so studious, so mature for her age. She appreciates intellectual gifts. Do not you, sweetheart?" It was not a question. It was a script, and I knew my line. "Yes, Mom. Thank you." But what I heard, what everyone in that room heard, was the translation. Eleanor is not the pretty one, so we make her the smart one. And the smart one does not get dollhouses. That was the day I learned that I would have to build my own joy. No one was going to hand it to me wrapped in sparkly paper. By the time I was 10, I had claimed the garage as my kingdom. It was dusty, filled with forgotten tools and half-empty paint cans, spiders in the corners, and oil stains on the concrete floor. My father used it to store things he meant to fix but never did. I turned it into a workshop. With scrap lumber I pulled from the trash pile behind the hardware store with bent nails, I straightened with a rock with splinters in my hands and determination in my heart. I built a desk. It took me 3 weeks. The surface was uneven. The legs were different heights until I learned about measuring twice and cutting once. It wobbled. It was ugly. It was mine. I sanded it until my arms ached. I stained it with leftover wood stain I found in the garage. I carried it to my room and set it under the window, and for the first time in my life, I felt proud of something I had created, something no one could take credit for, something no one could give to Serena instead. That desk became everything to me, my homework station, my art studio, my drafting table where I sketched impossible buildings that reached toward impossible dreams. At that desk, I taught myself that if no one was going to build me a place in this family, I would build my own place in the world. When I was 13, I spent 6 months designing a solar-powered car for the state science fair. I taught myself physics from library books. I learned about photovoltaic cells from documentaries I watched after everyone had gone to bed. I calculated energy conversion rates on graph paper, adjusting angles and testing variables. The car was not much to look at, made from a toy car. Base, solar panels I had saved 3 months of allowance to buy, and wiring I had learned to solder from YouTube videos. But it worked. It worked perfectly. I won first place, beat out 200 other students. The judges called my project remarkably sophisticated and genuinely innovative. The local newspaper wanted to do a feature on the young inventor and her supportive family. The photographer came to our house on a Saturday. I wore my best dress, the one I had bought myself from the thrift store. I held my trophy gold-plated and heavy, engraved with "First Place, Eleanor Vance." My father sat in his recliner reading the financial section, barely glancing up when the photographer asked him to stand next to me. "That's nice, Eleanor," he said, his eyes never leaving the stock reports. "Very practical skill you are developing there. Could be useful someday." The photographer waited for more. The enthusiasm, the pride, the beam of parental joy that should have been radiating from him. Nothing. My mother managed a tight smile for the camera, her hand resting on my shoulder with the weight of obligation rather than affection. "We always knew Eleanor had a technical mind," she told the reporter, as if my achievement was simply a personality trait, not months of work and sacrifice. The article ran the following Tuesday. They used the photo, but the caption told the real story: local teen wins science fair. No mention of my family. Even the newspaper could sense their indifference. I kept that trophy on my desk, my homemade desk, and I never mentioned it again. 2 weeks later, the house erupted in celebration. Serena, now 10 years old and already aware of her power, had landed a minor role in her middle school's production of Annie. She had 3 lines. 3. And a place in the orphan chorus. My parents lost their minds with pride. My father took the day off work, something he had never done for any of my achievements, to make phone calls. My mother spent 2 days planning a party. Not a small family dinner, a party. She rented a tent for the backyard, hired a caterer, ordered a custom cake with Serena's face printed on it in edible ink. They invited everyone, neighbors, relatives, my father's business associates, people I had never seen at our house before. They hung a banner across our front porch visible from the street. "Congratulations, Serena, future Broadway star," for 3 lines in a middle school play. I helped set up the party. I carried chairs. I arranged tables. I watched my parents glow with pride over my sister's mediocre achievement, while my first-place trophy gathered dust in my room, unseen, uncelebrated, utterly forgotten. That night at the party, someone asked my mother, "Doesn't Eleanor do science or something?" My mother waved her hand dismissively. "Oh, yes, she is very studious. But Serena has star quality. You cannot teach that." I stood there holding a tray of appetizers, invisible in my own home. That was the pattern. That became my life. High school was 4 more years of the same script. I fought for every grade, every achievement, every scholarship application. I graduated valedictorian with a perfect GPA and a full ride to one of the top architecture programs in the country. I had been accepted to Cornell. Cornell! Students around me were crying with joy over state schools, and I had earned a spot in an Ivy League. My father's response: "That is good, very practical." Serena graduated the same year with a C average, barely meeting the requirements to walk across the stage. Her attendance was spotty, her effort was minimal. She had spent 4 years floating through school on charm and the assumption that she would marry rich anyway. My father bought her a brand new convertible, cherry red, leather seats, premium sound system. "She deserves to enjoy her youth," he told me when he saw my face. "You have your scholarship, you will be fine. Serena needs our help more." I left for college 3 days later with everything I owned packed into a borrowed truck. The only furniture I took was that rough wooden desk from my childhood. It barely fit, and it was heavy, and it was scarred with years of use. But I strapped it down and took it with me because it was proof. Proof that I could build something from nothing. Proof that I did not need them. Cornell was freedom. For the first time in my life, I was in a place where results mattered more than appearances, where hard work was rewarded instead of dismissed, where I could be seen. I worked 3 jobs to support myself, even with the full scholarship. I worked at the campus library at a coffee shop near the architecture building and as a teaching assistant for underclassmen. I did not ask my parents for money, not once, because asking meant owing and owing meant giving them power over me. And I had learned that their power always came with conditions I could not meet. Meanwhile, Serena posted Instagram photos of her glamorous life, brunch with mom, shopping trips with dad's credit card, vacations to places I could only dream of. Her life was a highlight reel of unearned luxury, and my life was coffee-stained textbooks and all-nighters in the studio. But I loved it. Architecture was not just a major, it was salvation. In the precise angles of a blueprint, in the mathematical certainty of structural calculations, in the way form could follow function into something beautiful and strong, I found a language that made sense. A world where excellence was measurable, where vision mattered, where I could design spaces that told stories of permanence and strength, the things I had always wanted but never received. I graduated at the top of my class. My thesis project, a community center designed for resilience and sustainability, won the departmental award and was featured in Architectural Digest's annual student showcase. My parents did not come to graduation. Serena had a pool party that weekend, and they did not want to miss it. But representatives from 3 top firms came to recruit me. Harrison and Associates, a prestigious San Francisco company known for innovative commercial design, offered me a position before I had even walked across the stage. I accepted immediately. For 10 years, I poured everything into that firm. I worked 100-hour weeks. I took the projects no one else wanted and turned them into portfolio pieces. I was not the most charming. I did not play golf with clients or network at cocktail parties. I was not good at the performance of corporate socializing, but I was the best. My designs won awards, regional awards, national awards. Buildings I had designed became landmarks. Clients requested me by name. I became the youngest senior architect in the firm's history. And then, 10 years in, I did the most terrifying thing I had ever done. I walked into the managing partner's office and quit. "I am starting my own firm," I told him. He tried to talk me out of it, offered me a partnership, offered me more money, offered me everything except what I really wanted: complete creative control and the knowledge that everything I built belonged to me. "Thank you," I said, "but I need to build something that is entirely mine." Starting Vance Architecture was like jumping off a cliff and building wings on the way down. Terrifying, exhilarating, uncertain, mine. And then the project came. The one that would change everything. A client approached me with a piece of land on the California coast, perched on cliffs overlooking the Pacific. Raw, windswept, beautiful. They wanted something that honored the landscape, something modern but timeless, something that felt like it had grown from the rock itself. I spent a year on the design, obsessed over every detail. The house would have walls of glass that brought the ocean inside, spaces that flowed like water, a tower inspired by the lighthouse that had once stood on those cliffs before storms had taken it decades ago. The client loved it. But then they made an unexpected offer. "Buy the land from us," they said. "Build this for yourself. This is your vision, Eleanor." You should live in it. We will finance another project with you, but this is yours. It took every penny I had saved over a decade, every favor I could call in, every ounce of courage I possessed. 2 years of my life. Blood, sweat, tears, and splinters that reminded me of that first desk I had built at 10 years old. But I built it. The Lighthouse Villa rose from the cliffs like a dream made solid. Glass and steel and stone, strong enough to withstand Pacific storms, beautiful enough to take your breath away. Every room filled with light, every angle deliberate, every detail perfect. It was not just a house, it was a statement. Proof that I had become someone who mattered, proof that I had built something magnificent without them. I planned the housewarming party for 3 months. I imagined walking my family through each room, showing them what I had created, finally earning the pride I had chased my entire life. And then came the moment that would change everything. When the client saw the final renderings, they made me an offer I had not expected. Buy the land from us, they said. Build this for yourself. We will finance another project with you, but this house, this is your vision. You should live in it. It took every penny I had saved, every favor I could call in, and 2 years of my life. But I built it. I poured my heart into every decision, every material choice, every angle of light. The Lighthouse Villa was not just a house. It was proof that I was not the overlooked girl in the garage anymore. Proof that I had value. Proof that I could create something beautiful and lasting without anyone's help. I planned the housewarming party for months. I wanted it to be perfect. I imagined my family walking through the door, seeing what I had accomplished, finally seeing me. I imagined my father's surprise, my mother's pride, even Serena's grudging admiration. I sent the invitations on custom-pressed paper. I called to confirm. I even offered to arrange a car service so they would not have to make the 3-hour drive themselves. And then came that text message, the one that shattered my last illusion. I stood there in the middle of my architectural masterpiece, and I made a decision. I was done waiting for their approval. I was done making myself smaller so they could feel bigger. I was done being the forgotten daughter. I picked up my phone and opened my contacts. I scrolled past Mom and Dad and Serena, and I started making calls to people who actually deserved to be celebrated. Ben Carter, my best friend from college and now a successful lawyer, was the first person I called. Ben, I need you to come to my housewarming party tonight, and I need you to bring everyone you know who has ever been treated like they did not matter. There was a pause on the other end. Ellie, what are you planning? I am planning to stop letting them make me feel small, I said. Are you in? Always, he said. I spent the next 3 hours on the phone. I called my cousin Marcus, who had been ostracized from the family when he came out as gay. I called Mrs. Chin, my high school art teacher, who had been fired for insubordination when she stood up for a bullied student. I called David Hernandez, a former colleague who had been pushed out of a firm because he refused to compromise his ethics. I called every person I could think of who had been dismissed, overlooked, or discarded by people who should have valued them. And then I made one more call, to HGTV. I had been approached by them 6 months earlier about featuring the Lighthouse Villa in their Architectural Dreams series. I had declined, preferring to keep my personal life private. Now, privacy seemed like cowardice. Is that offer still open? I asked the producer. Absolutely, she said. When can we come out? Tonight, I said. I am having a housewarming party, and I think you are going to want to be there for the story. The party that night was not what I had originally planned. It was better. The house filled with people who understood what it meant to be unseen. We did not have assigned seats. There was no head table. Every place was equal. Every person mattered. The HGTV crew arrived and set up discreetly, capturing the warmth and energy of the evening. Toward the end of the night, they asked if they could interview me on the rooftop deck with the lighthouse tower and the ocean as a backdrop. I stood there with the wind in my hair and the sunset painting the sky in shades of gold and purple, and I told the truth. This house is about more than architecture, I said to the camera. It is about creating space for people who have never had space. It is about building something where fairness is not a decoration but the foundation. For too long, I lived in a structure where some rooms were valued more than others, where some people were given light and others were left in shadow. I built the Lighthouse Villa to prove that you can create something beautiful when you refuse to accept that inequality as normal. I did not mention my family by name. I did not have to. The subtext was clear to anyone who had ever felt what I felt. The crew thanked me, packed up their equipment, and left. The party continued late into the night. Ben found me on the deck around midnight after most of the guests had left. "You know they are going to lose their minds when this airs, right?" he said. "I know," I said. "Are you ready for that?" I looked at him, this man who had stood by me through every struggle, who had never once made me feel like I was asking for too much just by asking to be seen. "I have been ready my entire life," I said. The episode aired 2 weeks later. It was the most watched episode of the season. My phone exploded with calls and messages, but not from the people who mattered. The people who mattered had been at my party celebrating with me. The calls that did come were from my family. Dozens of them. Angry, panicked, desperate. My mother called first. Her voice had that saccharine quality she used when she was trying to manipulate me. "Eleanor, honey, I just saw the interview. I think there has been a terrible misunderstanding. You made it sound like we do not support you, and that is simply not true. People are calling me asking questions. You have embarrassed the family." I sat at my rough wooden desk, the one I had built at 10 years old, now refinished and sitting in my home office overlooking the ocean. "I did not mention you by name, Mom," I said calmly. "If people are asking questions, maybe that says more about your conscience than my words." "Eleanor, that is not fair. We have always supported you. We paid for your—" "You paid for nothing," I interrupted. "I had a full scholarship. I worked 3 jobs in college. I have not asked you for a dime since I was 18 years old. But you did pay for Serena's apartment, her car, her credit cards. So let us not pretend this is about fairness." There was silence on the other end. Then my father's voice came on. Apparently, they had me on speaker. "That is enough, Eleanor," he said in the commanding tone that used to make me shrink. "You are being dramatic and ungrateful. We missed one party because your sister needed us. Families help each other. Or have you forgotten what that means? Something in me, something that had been wound tight for 3 decades, finally released." "Families help each other," I repeated. "Dad, when did you help me? When I won the state science fair and you did not even look at my trophy. When I graduated valedictorian and you left early because you had a business dinner. When I started my own company and you told me I was being reckless. When did you help me?" "We raised you," my mother interjected. "We gave you a home, food, and education. The bare minimum," I said. "You gave me the bare minimum that the law required, and you gave Serena the world. Do you know what the difference is? I never asked to be spoiled. I just asked to be seen, and you could not even give me that." I heard my grandmother's voice in the background. Evelyn, my maternal grandmother, the only person in the family who had ever truly understood me. "Judy Michael, stop it," she said, her voice cutting through their protests. "I have watched you do this to this girl since she was born, always turning away from her, always making excuses. The whole town has seen it now, and instead of apologizing, you are attacking her. You should be ashamed." "Mother, stay out of this," my mother snapped. "I will not," Evelyn said. "Eleanor, sweetheart, I am proud of you. That house is magnificent, and what you said about creating space for people who have never had space that was beautiful. You keep standing tall, honey." I felt tears sting my eyes. "Thank you, Grandma." The call ended with threats and accusations. My father vowed to make me understand the consequences of my actions. My mother sobbed about how I had humiliated them in front of everyone they knew. I hung up and blocked their numbers. The next week, the consequences my father had promised began to materialize. Someone leaked a story to the tabloids claiming that I had cut corners on the Lighthouse Villa construction, that I had used substandard materials, that I had bribed inspectors to pass faulty work. The article was full of lies, but it spread quickly. Social media picked it up. My email flooded with concerned messages from clients. Ben came to my house the day the article was published, his lawyer face on. "This has Serena written all over it," he said, showing me the byline. Sarah Jenkins, a tabloid reporter known for her sensational and often fabricated stories. "We need to respond, and we need to respond hard." I sat down at my kitchen table, that same sick feeling from childhood washing over me. The feeling of being punished for existing. "How do we fight lies?" I asked. "With truth," Ben said. "Overwhelming, undeniable truth." Over the next 3 days, Ben and I built a case. We gathered every permit, every inspection report, every invoice, every certification for materials used in the Lighthouse Villa construction. We contacted the engineers, the contractors, the suppliers. Everyone was willing to testify to the quality and integrity of the work, but we did not stop there. Ben did something I had not expected. He hired a private investigator to look into Sarah Jenkins and her connection to my family. What he found was damning. Financial records showing a payment of $50,000 from an offshore account linked to my father's company to Sarah Jenkins made just 2 days before the article was published. Email exchanges between Serena's personal account and Sarah's work account outlining the exact false accusations that appeared in the article. My sister had orchestrated the entire thing, and my father had paid for it. I should have been surprised, but I was not. This was who they had always been. I had just never been important enough to warrant this level of attention before. "What do we do?" I asked Ben. He smiled, and it was not a kind smile. It was the smile of a lawyer who had found the perfect opening. "We destroy them," he said. I scheduled a press conference at the Lighthouse Villa. Every major news outlet in the region came. The tabloids that had run the original story, the architectural magazines that had celebrated my work. Even HGTV sent a crew. I stood in my living room with the ocean behind me and that rough wooden desk visible in my office through the glass wall, and I told the truth. All of it. I showed the permits, the inspection reports, the invoices. I had structural engineers testify to the integrity of the building. I had suppliers confirm the quality of every material. I left no room for doubt. And then I did something my family had not anticipated. I showed the evidence of their involvement, the financial records, the emails, everything. "Someone recently suggested that I built my success through shortcuts and deception," I said to the cameras. "The truth is, I built my success through hard work and integrity. The only deception here was orchestrated by members of my own family who apparently could not stand to see me succeed without them." I watched Sarah Jenkins try to slip out the back. "Ms. Jenkins, please stay," I said. "I believe you have some explaining to do to your employer about accepting payment to publish false information." The fallout was immediate and spectacular. Sarah Jenkins was fired within hours. Serena's social media accounts, which she had used to play the victim and garner sympathy, became flooded with people calling out her lies. My father's company faced scrutiny from business partners and investors who did not appreciate being associated with such unethical behavior. My mother called again, but this time I answered. "How could you do this to us?" she sobbed. "We are being destroyed. Your father's business is suffering. Serena cannot show her face anywhere. You have ruined us." I let her cry. I let her rage. And when she was finally quiet, I spoke. "Mom, you could have just come to my party. You could have just been proud of me, just once. That is all I ever wanted. But instead, when I finally stopped begging for your attention, you tried to destroy me. So do not call me crying about consequences. You created this." "We are family," she whispered. "No," I said. "Family does not do what you did. Family shows up. Family celebrates each other. Family does not pay tabloids to ruin their daughter's career because she had the audacity to succeed without them." I hung up, and this time I did not feel guilty. In the weeks that followed, something unexpected happened. My grandmother Evelyn reached out not to defend my parents, but to share her own story. She told me that she had endured similar treatment from my grandfather's family, how she had been dismissed and diminished for years. She told me that seeing me stand up had inspired her to finally speak her own truth. She also told me something that changed everything. Years ago, when my father was first starting his business, he had been involved in a scheme to undermine a competitor using false information and paid media stories. Victoria had been the one to coordinate it. The competitor had been ruined, his reputation destroyed, his business bankrupted. "I kept evidence," Evelyn said. "I did not know what to do with it then. I was too afraid, but if you need it now to protect yourself, it is yours." The evidence she provided painted a clear picture. My parents were not just neglectful family members. They were people who had built their success on the destruction of others, and they had tried to do the same to their own daughter when she would not stay in the shadow they had assigned her. I took the evidence to Ben, and together we made a decision. We would not go public with it unless we had to, but we would use it as leverage. I called my father, not to reconcile, to negotiate. "Dad, I have evidence of what you and Mom did to Richard Thornton in 2003. I know about the false stories, the paid journalists, the orchestrated campaign to destroy his business. And I know you did it because he would not sell you his company at the price you wanted." Silence on the other end. Then, "What do you want?" "I want you to leave me alone. I want a public apology, a real one, acknowledging that you treated me unfairly for my entire life. And I want you to establish a scholarship fund in my grandmother Evelyn's name for students pursuing architecture who come from families where they are not supported. $1 million to start? That is blackmail." "No, Dad, that is accountability. You have two choices. You can do this willingly and quietly, or I can release the evidence and let the world see who you really are. Either way, I am done being your scapegoat." 2 days later, my parents held a press conference. It was painful to watch. My father, a man who had never admitted fault in his life, stood at a podium and read from a prepared statement. "My wife and I want to address the recent events involving our daughter Eleanor. We have not been the parents she deserved. For too many years we prioritized one child over the other. We dismissed Eleanor's achievements and failed to support her dreams. We let our pride and our own flaws damage our relationship with a daughter who only ever wanted our love and respect. We are deeply sorry." It was not heartfelt. It was barely sincere. But it was public and it was permanent. My mother spoke next, her voice shaking. "Eleanor is a brilliant architect and an extraordinary woman. She built the Lighthouse Villa with integrity and vision. We should have been there to celebrate with her. We failed her, and we take full responsibility for the pain we caused." The scholarship fund was established the following week, the Evelyn Hart Scholarship for Overlooked Architects. My grandmother cried when I told her. "You did not have to do that," she said. "Yes, I did," I said, "because you were the only one who saw me, and now other kids who feel invisible will know that someone sees them too." My business did not just survive the scandal, it thrived. The publicity, ironically, had made the Lighthouse Villa famous. Architecture students studied it. Design magazines featured it. Clients from around the world reached out asking me to create spaces that told stories of resilience and transformation. One of those clients was David Chin, a real estate developer who had been a rival of my father's for years. He approached me about a collaboration on a series of sustainable housing developments designed for low-income families. "Your father tried to destroy my business once," David said at our first meeting. "But I rebuilt, and I respect people who can do the same. I think we could do something meaningful together." We did. Over the next 2 years, we built 3 communities that provided beautiful, affordable housing for families who had been priced out of the market. Each development had a community center designed around the idea that every person deserves space, dignity, and beauty in their lives. My relationship with my parents never recovered. We communicate through lawyers now, which is easier for everyone. Serena tried to reach out once, a long apology letter that read like it had been written by a publicist. I did not respond. Some bridges once burned are not meant to be rebuilt. But my relationship with my grandmother deepened. Evelyn moved into a guest house on my property, and we spent countless evenings on my deck watching the sunset and talking about everything we should have talked about years ago. Ben remained my closest friend and eventually became the general counsel for my firm. We never became romantic, despite what people assumed. Our bond was deeper than romance. It was the kind of friendship that survives everything because it is built on absolute trust and respect. 5 years after the infamous housewarming party, I stood in the same spot where I had received that text message. The Lighthouse Villa was no longer just my home. It had become a symbol. People wrote to me sharing their own stories of being overlooked, of breaking free, of building lives that reflected their worth rather than other people's limitations. I kept that rough wooden desk in my office. Sometimes clients would ask about it, this primitive, scarred piece of furniture in an otherwise sleek space. That is where it started, I would tell them. When I was 10 years old and no one was paying attention, I built something with my own hands. It is not perfect, but it is mine. And it reminds me that I do not need anyone's permission to create something meaningful. The lighthouse tower I had designed for the house served its purpose. At night, when I turned on the light, it swept across the dark ocean, a beacon visible for miles. People told me they could see it from the highway, from boats offshore, from the cliffs down the coast. "It is like you are saying you are here," one visitor told me. "You exist. You matter." "Yes," I said. "That is exactly what I am saying." The final confrontation with my family came not in anger, but in indifference. They tried to reconnect when my company was featured in Forbes as one of the top architectural firms in the country. My father called his voice careful, measured. "Eleanor, I saw the Forbes article. I wanted to say congratulations. Perhaps we could have dinner, discuss some business opportunities." "No, thank you," I said, and the ease with which I said it surprised even me. There was no anger, no pain, just a calm certainty. "Eleanor, we are still your family. You are the people I am biologically related to," I corrected. "But family is the people who show up. Family is Ben, who has been there for every success and every setback. Family is Grandma Evelyn, who stood up for me when it cost her. Family is the team I have built, the clients who trust me, the community I have created. You are not my family. You are my past." I hung up before he could respond. There was nothing left to say. Today, the Lighthouse Villa stands as more than a house. It is a testament to what happens when you stop waiting for permission to matter, when you stop shrinking yourself to fit into spaces that were never designed for you, when you build your own foundation, set your own terms, and light your own way forward. I host a gathering here once a year on the anniversary of that first housewarming party. It is for people who have been overlooked, dismissed, forgotten. We call it the Beacon Dinner, and it has grown from 20 people to over 200. We eat together, share stories, and celebrate the fact that we are still here, still building, still creating light in the darkness. Sometimes people ask me if I regret how things turned out with my family. The answer is no. I regret the years I spent trying to earn love that was never going to be freely given. I regret the times I made myself smaller to make them comfortable. But I do not regret walking away. I do not regret choosing myself. Because here is what I learned. You cannot build a strong structure on a weak foundation, and you cannot build a strong life on the foundation of other people's validation. The moment I stopped waiting for my family to see my worth and started building a life that reflected it, everything changed. The Lighthouse Villa is not just where I live. It is proof that you can create something beautiful from scratch even when no one believes in you, especially when no one believes in you. Every evening I climb to the lighthouse tower and turn on the beacon, and every evening as the light sweeps across the ocean, I am reminded that I do not need to be chosen. I do not need to be the favorite. I just need to be seen. And if the people who should have seen me cannot then, I will make sure the whole world does. The light shines, the foundation holds, and I am finally completely home. So let me ask you this. Have you ever felt invisible in your own family? Have you ever achieved something incredible only to have it dismissed by the people who should have celebrated you the most? Have you ever had to choose between your worth and their approval? Drop your story in the comments below. Share this video with someone who needs to know that they are not alone. And if this resonated with you, hit that subscribe button because everyone deserves to be seen. Your worth is not determined by who shows up for you. It is determined by who you become when you stop waiting for permission to shine.